The hot summer sun beat down on the dusty plains as Harriet Miller stepped off the wagon, clutching her worn suitcase. Her heart raced. At 19, she was about to marry rancher Cole Harding, a man twice her age, wealthy, and feared by everyone in the county. The villagers had whispered cruelly, "No one marries a fat girl." Harriet had heard it all her life, and yet she carried her head high, hoping she could make a place for herself. The ranch spread across the horizon, vast and intimidating. Cole Harding stood at the porch, broad-shouldered, arms crossed, his piercing gaze assessing her silently. Harriet swallowed her fear. I can cook," she said, her voice shaking, yet firm. "I can clean, so, I'll do everything you need. Please, don't judge me by how I look." Cole's eyes softened slightly. He had expected complaints, perhaps begging, maybe anger, but not this. The girl's courage and humility struck him in a way he didn't expect. He nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile crossing his face. "We'll see," he said simply. "Actions speak louder than words. Let's start with dinner tonight. You cook, and I'll watch." Harriet exhaled, relief and anxiety mixing in her chest. She had no idea that these first steps would mark the beginning of something neither of them could have predicted, a journey of understanding, respect, and maybe even love. That evening, as she moved through the kitchen, Cole observed silently. Every gesture, every careful motion revealed Harriet's determination, her strength beneath her gentle exterior. He realized that appearances could be deceiving. Perhaps, he thought, there was more to this bride than anyone had ever seen. That evening, the kitchen smelled of fresh bread and roasted vegetables. Harriet moved carefully, aware of Cole's eyes on her from the doorway. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and acutely aware of every misstep she might make. Her hands trembled slightly as she kneaded dough, but she refused to let fear dominate her. Cole, silent as always, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her. His expression was unreadable, but Harriet could feel the weight of his judgment, or perhaps, curiosity, pressing down on her. She took a deep breath and reminded herself, "I can do this. I must do this." Finally, she placed the meal on the table. The bread was golden, the vegetables perfectly roasted, and the stew rich and aromatic. She stepped back, heart pounding, waiting for his verdict. Cole picked up a fork, paused, and took a bite. Harriet's stomach tightened, fearing the worst. But his eyes flickered, not with disgust, but with surprise. He took another bite, then another. The corners of his mouth twitched, almost like a smile, but restrained. "You've exceeded my expectations," he said quietly, his voice low but sincere. Not many could pull this off on their first attempt. Harriet blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. Relief surged through her, mingled with a strange flutter in her chest. A seed of hope began to grow. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a place in this household, not as a servant, not as a mistake, but as someone worthy of respect. Cole set down his fork, meeting her gaze. "Keep cooking like this, and we'll see how things go. Talent like yours, it's rare." Harriet nodded, a shy smile forming. That night, as she cleaned the dishes, she realized something astonishing. Cole Harding might just be the first person to see her, not the world's cruel judgments. The next morning, the sun rose over the sprawling ranch, casting long golden rays across the fields. Cole walked beside Harriet as she followed him through the grazing cattle, her hands clasped nervously. She had expected him to ignore her, to treat her as a burden, but he spoke in quiet, measured tones. "Do you know anything about ranch work?" he asked, glancing at her briefly. Harriet shook her head. "Not much, but I can learn." Her voice carried determination, though a hint of nervousness lingered. Cole nodded approvingly. "That's good. I respect willingness to learn more than experience. Pride without humility gets people in trouble here." They moved along a narrow dirt path lined with wildflowers. Harriet's eyes followed his strong, deliberate steps, noticing the care with which he watched the land, the cattle, and even her. It was the first time she saw him truly relaxed, not the stern, intimidating man from yesterday. When a small calf wandered too close to the fence, Harriet instinctively stepped forward to guide it back. Cole caught her wrist gently. "Easy. You have to move with patience, not force. Watch the animals, they teach you what to do if you pay attention." She nodded, grateful for the lesson, and felt a spark of connection. For the first time, Cole didn't seem distant or judgmental. He was a teacher, and she, despite her insecurities, felt capable. Later, as they returned to the cabin, Cole paused and looked at her. "You're stronger than you think," he said softly. "People will underestimate you, Harriet. But strength, real strength, isn't always visible." Her cheeks warmed. No one had ever said that to her. Not about her body, not about her heart. Something shifted in her chest, a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and the beginning stirrings of something tender. That evening, the ranch was quiet. The last rays of sun had dipped behind the distant hills, leaving a soft amber glow across the cabin. Harriet sat near the fireplace, mending torn clothes, while Cole quietly cleaned his boots. The silence between them was comfortable, a rare occurrence for Harriet, who had expected cold indifference. Finally, Cole spoke, his voice low and thoughtful. "Harriet, do you ever feel like the world has already judged you before knowing you?" Harriet paused, her needle frozen mid-stitch. "All the time," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "People, they see me and assume I'm lazy, weak, or worse, unworthy of respect." Cole's gaze softened. "You couldn't be more wrong. I've watched you today, and I've seen patience, skill, and courage. Those qualities matter more than any opinion the world can throw at you." Harriet's heart skipped a beat. She had expected pity, or worse, indifference, but not this sincerity. She looked down at her hands, feeling warmth creep through her chest. I've never had anyone say that to me before," she confessed. Cole shifted closer, leaning against the mantel. "And you will hear it often from me," he said quietly. "Not because I have to, but because it's true. You're capable, Harriet. Stronger than you realize." The fire crackled, casting shadows across his face, and Harriet felt a flutter she had never experienced. It wasn't fear, it was something new. Something like hope. For the first time, she realized that maybe this marriage, which had begun with her fear and self-doubt, could become more than just duty or survival. Maybe, it could become a place where she was seen, valued, and even admired. As the night deepened, they sat in companionable silence, the kind that hinted at the quiet blossoming of trust, and the delicate beginnings of affection neither had yet dared to name. The following morning, Harriet awoke to the soft bleating of the ranch's goats and the golden sunlight streaming through the cabin window. She rose quietly, careful not to wake Cole, and began preparing breakfast. Today felt different, lighter somehow, as if the weight of yesterday's judgments had begun to lift. Cole appeared in the doorway, hands tucked into his pockets, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Harriet's stomach tightened, unsure whether to be nervous or hopeful. "Good morning," she said softly, trying to steady her voice. "Good morning," he replied, stepping closer. His eyes met hers, warm and steady, and for the first time, she felt as if he was truly seeing her. Not the size, not the awkwardness, not the assumptions the world had placed upon her. He was seeing her. "I made breakfast," Harriet said, gesturing to the simple meal on the table. Cole smiled, genuine and unguarded. "I saw that," he said. "And I want you to know, I've been thinking. Yesterday, I watched you handle the animals, cook dinner, and carry yourself with more strength and grace than I've seen in many people. You've earned my respect, Harriet. But more than that, you've earned my admiration." Harriet's cheeks flushed, her heart fluttering. She had expected a life of being overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. And yet, here was this man, acknowledging her worth with quiet sincerity. I don't know what to say," she whispered, looking down. "Say you'll continue to be yourself," Cole said gently, "because the woman I married isn't defined by her appearance, she's defined by her heart, her courage, and the life she brings to this ranch." For the first time in her life, Harriet felt seen, valued, and wanted. And as she looked up into Cole's steady gaze, she realized that this marriage, once feared and resented, could become something far greater than either of them had expected. The beginning of love, built not on appearances, but on respect, admiration, and shared life.